If you're an avid enthusiast of ancient mysteries, our channel offers a stockpile of fascinating content for you. In case you're not subscribed yet, you can easily change that by simply clicking the button. We regularly take virtual trips across time and distances to uncover the most remarkable and bewildering archaeological finds, and this particular video is yet another testament to that. In February 2023, during archaeological excavations as part of the A14 road improvement scheme in England, scientists from the Museum of London Archaeology discovered an incredibly rare ancient comb made from a human skull, among 280,000 other artifacts collected previously between 2016 and 2018. Dubbed the Bar Hill Comb, the artifact was found 4 miles northwest of Cambridge and dates back to the Iron Age. The exact use of the comb isn't obvious, but the presence of a hole in the comb suggests it was worn as an amulet rather than used as an accessory. The comb may have been a highly symbolic and powerful object for members of the local community, possibly carved from the skull of an important member of an Iron Age society whose presence was in some way symbolically preserved and commemorated through their bones. It provides insight into how communities treated their dead and sheds new light on ritual and belief in Iron Age Britain. Only 2 other similar pieces have ever been found in Britain, one in Erith, Cambridgeshire in the 1970s, which featured carved teeth, and the second in Hartston Mill in the early 2000s. Archaeologists have unearthed a double grave from the Late Bronze Age at the site of Metsamor in western Armenia. The cyst, which contained the skeletal remains of 2 adults, was also found to contain the rare remains of a wooden burial bed and 3 gold and carnelian necklaces. The grave dates back to 1300 to 1200 BCE and was discovered during the September to October 2022 excavation of the necropolis. 10 solid ceramic vessels were also discovered in the burial chamber, while in the lower layer, 8 more ceramic items were found. On the neck and chest of the skeletons, cylindrical and spherical beads, bead separators, and pendants made of gold, carnelian, amber, and tin were found. A ring made of thin tin wire was found on the wrist of one skeleton, while bronze bracelets were found on the wrist of one of the others, which also had tin buckles on its abdomen. Metsamor, which was built on a hill overlooking the Ararat Plain, was one of the most important political and cultural centers in the valley during the Bronze Age, so anyone who was buried in such a premium location was likely to have held high rank. A mudlarker in North Kent, England has stumbled upon a Bronze Age toddler's shoe. Experts believe the tiny shoe to be over 3,000 years old. It may be the smallest Bronze Age shoe ever discovered anywhere in the world. Unearthed by archaeologist Steve Tomlinson while mudlarking on a beach he's declined to name in September 2022, this tiny ovoid piece of leather could have easily been mistaken for the sole of a small medieval shoe. However, a radiocarbon analysis proved that it was far older, dating back to between 888 and 781 BCE, the Late Bronze Age period. The shoe measures 6 inches in length, equivalent to a UK toddler size 7 or US toddler size 8 to 8.5, typically worn by children aged 2 or 3. Further investigation has revealed that the shoe was made up of at least 2 and possibly 3 layers of leather, and had a woven textile pattern imprinted on the bottom. Conservation efforts are currently underway, and once they're completed, the shoe will be sent to the British Museum, where it will be subjected to more detailed scientific analysis to determine the type of animal leather that was used in its construction. There's some controversy about the so-called Jaguar God Cave of Chichen Itza in Mexico. It's known that the site was found by farmers in 1966, but for reasons that have never been clear, the authorities chose to wall up the site and prevent anyone from gaining entry for more than 50 years. Predictably, that's led to some suspicions that something was found in the cave that the authorities would prefer we never saw for ourselves. Now it's been reopened, the objects we have been allowed to see are 1,000-year-old Mayan artifacts, some of which are in pristine condition thanks to being sealed up in their underground bunker for centuries. The name Jaguar God Cave comes from its many sculptures of Balamku, who, as you've probably already guessed, was a jaguar god in ancient Mayan culture. Other items waiting in the darkness included grinding stones, incense holders, and several ornate decorative plates. We'll never know why archaeologist Victor Segovia Pinto went along with the order to seal it with rocks or what he found in there when he entered in 1966. He's sadly no longer with us to share his secrets. One of the greatest frustrations that archaeologists and historians face is that many of our ancient ancestors didn't have a written language, so they couldn't leave behind any written records that would help us to understand their culture. Even in some cases where written languages existed, translating those languages has proved to be difficult. With the supposed written language of Rango Rongo on Easter Island, experts can't even agree whether it's supposed to be a written language at all. Rango Rongo glyphs appear on wooden artifacts that have been collected from all over the island and are arranged in a repetitive pattern that suggests they form words or phrases. What makes this mystery all the stranger is that the artifacts aren't particularly old. The oldest known example of a Rango Rongo tablet was carved during the 17th century. The most recent of them was carved during the 1860s. The native language on Easter Island is Spanish, and so it seems that anyone who might have been able to translate these tablets passed away decades ago. How could a language die out entirely in such a short space of time? You might not think there's a great deal of mystery about the Waffle Rock in West Virginia, USA. It's a rock and it looks like a waffle. Mystery solved, right? Actually, wrong. The name of this odd rock only tells us what it looks like. It tells us nothing about how it came to look like that in the first place. The geometric pattern of straight lines intersecting and crisscrossing at regular intervals must surely be the product of human engineering. Scientists don't agree, though. They say that this distinctive pattern is down to natural erosion and nothing else. The U.S. Corps of Engineers has studied the Waffle Rock extensively, and they say that it's made from a sandstone rock that started to form 300 million years ago as nothing more than a plain, normal chunk of sandstone. A tectonic plate shift then cracked and broke it, which allowed iron oxide to penetrate into the cracks and make the distinctive lattice patterns we see today. That sounds semi-convincing, but would such a random process really result in such perfect shapes? Not everyone agrees. If you'd like to see it with your own eyes and make up your own mind, you'll find a large piece of it on permanent display by the side of Jennings-Randolph Lake. The idea that there's an enormous prehistoric tunnel network running beneath most of Europe sounds too preposterous to be true, and yet there's plenty of evidence to suggest that it exists. Evidence of tunnels has been found beneath several hundred Neolithic-era settlements on the continent, and many experts believe that all of the tunnels were once linked. If they're right, the network would have run all the way from Scotland to Turkey. That's an unbelievable undertaking and a colossal amount of work for people who would have had to dig them out with hand tools 12,000 years ago. Evidence for the existence of the tunnels has been presented by the German archaeologist Dr. Heinrich Kusch in his book, Secrets of the Underground Door to an Ancient World. Bizarrely, most of the tunnels are just 30 inches wide, barely enough space for a slim individual to crawl through on their belly. In places, they expand into storage chambers, nooks, and even whole rooms with stone seating. The purpose of the tunnels is unknown. Were they just a safe way to travel around and avoid predators or wars going on overhead? If so, why are they so narrow? The historical authenticity of the Bible has always been hotly disputed, as it's been translated, rewritten, and amended dozens of times over many centuries. It's much more likely that this eons-old Bible with blackened pages from the Ankara Justice Palace in Turkey is an accurate version of the original text than the Bible on your bookshelf, and that isn't good news for followers of the Christian faith. This controversial old Bible, which was made at least 1,500 years ago, contains a gospel that doesn't appear in modern equivalents. The gold text, etched upon leather pages, includes the Gospel of Barnabas. In it, Barnabas rejects the assertion that Jesus Christ was the Son of God, and explains that he was a human prophet instead. Barnabas also says that Apostle Paul was a fraud and an impostor, and that Christ escaped crucifixion when Judas Iscariot agreed to be crucified in his place. This Bible might be as old as 2000, and if it is, that may explain the presence of the extra gospel. There used to be many more gospels before all of them, save for Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were discarded by the Council of Nicaea 1,700 years ago. The Porbajin complex in Russia's Tuva region is one of the country's most enigmatic archaeological sites. Its name translates to clay house in Tuvinian, indicating what it is made of but not what it was erected for. This odd site, located on an island in the center of Terakol Lake, is a Uyghur remnant that was most likely constructed in the 9th century. It was previously assumed to be the remnants of an ancient fortress when archaeologists first discovered it, but additional research has revealed that the layout of the buildings and the rooms they housed is more consistent with the design of an ancient Chinese royal palace. Surprisingly, other than the buildings themselves, there is no sign of human activity in or near the site. This could indicate that it was constructed about the year 777 as a temple for Manichaeism believers. Tengri Bogu Khan, a follower of that faith, ruled this region that year, but was savagely deposed 2 years later in a revolt, sponsored by opponents of the religion. With Khan dead and the religion outlawed, any temple dedicated to it would have been considered unnecessary. Gobekli Tepe is a historic site so unbelievable that archaeologists had to look at it twice before they realized its real significance. The Turkish temple was already known as an area of archaeological interest when a German team came to take a closer look at it in 1994. And that's when they discovered it was far older than anyone had previously credited it for. These animal carvings and stone circles date back 11,000 years, to a time when our understanding of the humans in the area tells us that they were nomadic tribes who roamed from place to place, rather than settling down into permanent residency. We believe they were little more than hunter-gatherers, and yet they made all this. Whatever its true purpose is, someone was once keen to make sure we never found out about it. Roughly 8,000 years ago, the entire site was deliberately buried deep under layers of soil. If we accept that Gobekli Tepe has religious or spiritual significance, then it's the oldest temple or temple-like structure anywhere in the world. We've known about the Plain of Jars in Laos for quite some time. They're scattered all over the Chiang Quang Plain in the highlands of the country, molded from rock, and can be anywhere between 3 feet and 10 feet high, with each jar weighing more than 10 tons. They're something like 2,000 years old, and their purpose remains unclear, but a relatively recent discovery may shed a little more light on them. An Australian team of archaeologists working in the country in May 2019 has located an additional 137 of the jars, spread across 15 more sites, and some of these appear to be closer to 2,500 years old than 2,000. Louise Schuan, who worked with the team, has said she believes the jars were used in funeral rituals. Human bodies were stored in the jars and left to decompose, and then the bones would later be extracted and buried. Stone carvings and personal belongings, including jewelry and beads found near these newly found jars, seem to support her theory. Do you feel differently about the Plain of Jars now you know it might be a huge mortuary? Now we head to Romania to finish our tour because that's where we find a series of ancient sites that make up the Dacian fortresses of the Orasti Mountains, recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1999. There are 6 fortresses in total, dating back approximately 2,300 years and tucked away in the western Carpathian Mountains. The limestone and andesite walls of the fortresses are made of rocks that were transported from many miles away, but that's not the most impressive thing to be seen here. That honor goes to the ancient solar disk at the Sarmizgekatuza Regia fortress, also made of andesite and split into 10 sectors. It also features a long arrow made from 16 stone blocks, and some evidence suggests that it had an astronomical purpose. Nothing quite like it exists at any of the other fortresses, nor anywhere else in Romania or even the wider world. Quite who these ancient fortress builders were and how they seem to possess such an innate understanding of the night sky is a mystery that still eludes us. But it's an active archaeological site and research is ongoing. Perhaps the answer will arrive one day soon.
Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching and see you soon!